A studio condenser mic for just €48. Hi, my name's Ian, and I'm one of these people that look a lot at reviews on the internet, especially YouTube, and one that really got my interest was one that was done by Soundspeeds concerning the T.Bone SC400 microphone. Now, what really attracted my interest was the fact that the noise floor was published as extremely low on this microphone, and not only that, a really good price as well. The other thing I liked was it's a super cardioid rather than a cardioid, and that really attracted me in this room. So for me, the real attraction of this microphone is the fact that it's a studio condenser, which means it's going to have a nice full-bodied sound, but on top of that, low noise, which means it can be taken further away and the gain can be raised in room. And it's a super cardioid, so in a room where you've got reverberations, hopefully it might also cut the reverberations down, give me an improved sound. The only thing with this, though, is if you put it on a boom stand up there, it's going to be quite a weighty thing to hold, so you have to make sure that your boom stand is nice and solid. The microphone comes with an extensive data sheet, which Soundspeeds he actually describes really very well. I didn't fully understand at first this color that has a colored chart of its frequency response and its on and off axis responses and how it works, but once it was explained to me by Soundspeeds, I actually did understand it. So it is a super cardioid, and it does give a lot of information here, and as I say, it's got a sensitivity of -32, which is very good, very sensitive microphone. In fact, actually it is very loud. The signal to noise ratio is 87.3. That's what it's quoted in dBA. And the self noise is somewhere silly, like here it is, 6.7 dBA. Very low. The only microphone that I have that gets close to that is the Rode NT1A. So this is a very, hopefully, low noise microphone. One thing that surprised me when I first got this microphone was it does resemble something like the newer NW700. It's got this flat type of grill here, and it's not round. It's solid, it's pretty solid, but what surprised me is the weight. This thing is quite weighty. That really did surprise me. The other thing that is a bit peculiar is on the front of the microphone there is a pattern that says it's a cardioid right on the front, but on the labelling it says it's a supercardioid. Now, from testing, I get the impression that it is actually a supercardioid. And how do I tell? Well, I just talk around the microphone, and the off-axis response is basically not 90 degrees, but slightly behind. But as you come around the back, sure enough, the sound does slightly come up a bit. So that's indicative of it being more like a supercardioid than a cardioid. But it is actually marked as a cardioid on the microphone. I think sometimes manufacturers, they put cardioid, whether they mean supercardioid, hypercardioid. The cardioid sign means it's forward-facing microphone, and that's the way it should be used. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try using this close-up as you would do in a studio situation or in a whisper room. Although this isn't anything like a whisper room. And then I'm going to try it boomed, which is basically what I may be using this for, and see how this thing works. Now for this test, I'm just hand holding it at the moment, which is a little bit dodgy with a condenser microphone because these bodies of the microphones, they can be very sensitive to touch. But just to give an idea of the sound and so I can rotate it easily, I'm feeding it into a Saramonic portable recorder. And I'm speaking into it about a distance you would use it, say, in a studio. And this is the sound of this microphone close up in a room, quite reverberant. The only thing I would say about this microphone is that if you do tap the body, you're going to get a little bit of ringing. Now that sound is something that the newer mics do as well, but much more obvious than on this one. But it does ring a little bit if you tap it. So if you have it on a table or something like that, you're going to have to make sure you've got a good shock mount. This does come with quite a nice shock mount, and a lot doesn't come through from the mount itself, so that's pretty good. But bear in mind, if you put it on a table and you bang the table, you're literally going to cause some kind of ringing, I think, in this microphone. So you've got to be careful of that. Or equally, if you put it on a stand and hold it up there in front of you, if you tap the stand, it's going to transmit through to the microphone pretty easily if you haven't got a good shock mount up there. Having said that, as I said, the shock mount that comes with the microphone actually isn't too bad. So this is the sound of the microphone from the front. Now, I'm not going to go to 90 degrees, but I'm going to go to slightly to the rear. I'm going round slowly. I'm trying to do it slowly without causing too much ringing on the microphone. I'm now round at the rear of the microphone, but slightly over to the side. So we're probably now at the null point. That's possibly the null point of this microphone, which isn't 90 degrees, but slightly behind it. And if I go a bit further round to the back, this is the sound of the microphone on the back. And this is where the supercardioids can point themselves out, because they have a slightly raised rear. They pick up from the rear slightly, maybe a little bit higher than I would like, which means in a room with wall reflections, etc., this could be problematic. So I'll carry on round, and I'm now coming round to the null point now. I'm at the null, I think at the null point of the microphone now. And then as I come round to the front again, I'll do it very carefully so I don't cause too much noise. And that's the front of the microphone again. Now, hopefully that's given you some idea of how the microphone might sound close up. And again, I'm not in a studio, I'm not in a whisper room, I'm just in my front room. And I think a lot of people would use these like this. Not all of us have a whisper room or a studio to use, and we want to use them in our front rooms, and this is what it would sound like. Having said that, I have got a wall behind me, so this might well be picking up reflections from behind as well. But this is pretty typical of how this microphone would sound in room. Now I'm going to try the microphone now boomed on a stand. Now I have the microphone boomed on a stand, and again I'm in the same room, same position. It's now a little bit further away, but there are two things about this microphone I like for this kind of purpose. One, it's actually a supercardioid, so I can point the back hopefully away into something that might not reflect. And two, it is actually very, very sensitive. It does give a really quite a healthy output, and you don't need to drive your preamps too high. Now that means that noise levels are going to be low, and it's not going to be so much of a problem when you're using this a little bit further away from your mouth, which means you could, at a pinch, use this as a boomed microphone. So this is the sound of it being boomed, and it's about, I would say, 2 to 2.5 feet away from me at the moment. It's in front of me, pointing to my chest here. And I'm speaking at a reasonable level in the house, just to give you some idea of how this might react to the reverberation in the room, because these microphones are very, very sensitive, and they would be prone, I would imagine, to pick up quite a bit of reverberation. But having said that, you can get a really high quality from a studio condenser mic as well. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. So if this is giving a good healthy output, low noise, and not picking up too much of the reverberation in the room and sounds around me, then it's going to be useful as a microphone, perhaps to be boomed as well. Particularly nice is the fact that I've got it just attached to a portable Saramonic recorder as well, which makes it dead easy to just take anywhere and use as a normal microphone with no wires whatsoever. So this is the sound from the front of the microphone. Now I'm going to just swing round to the null point just to show the null point at the same distance. So I'm now on the null point of the microphone. Now the fact is that the microphone is pointing into the chair, not into the wall behind me. So hopefully not too much is being picked up there. And if I go right behind it, I'm now at a point right behind it here. I just had an alarm go off. I don't know if it's picked that up. I'm now dead behind it. So I'm right behind it at the same distance. I'm now coming round to the null point over here. This is the null point. And this might produce some kind of boominess in the room. I'm not quite sure. Coming round to the front. And now I'm sitting in front of it, and this is the sound of the microphone from the front. So that's the sound of the T.Bone from a boom stand, and as I say, about 2 to 3 feet away from me. So not ideal, but the kind of situation you may well want to use it in actually. So we'll see how that sounds. This is something that a lot of people don't normally do with a condenser, is to take it somewhere like outside where you haven't got reflections at all. So this is the sound of the microphone from the front outside. Now if I go to the null point, this is the sound of the microphone from its null point. So this is from just over 90 degrees behind, and this is the sound of the microphone from behind. If I come round to the front again, back to the front again, and the microphone now is active from the front, and hopefully now with no wall reflections going on, you can hear what this microphone sounds like in a slightly more dead environment. So hopefully this has given you some idea of what the T.Bone SC400 sounds like. It's a cheap microphone. 48 euros is very cheap for a microphone. In UK money, that's about £45. And it can be bought from a shop called T.Bone, which is in Germany, and it arrives in the UK literally within days. I'm really pleased with it. It's got low noise, really low noise. It has that super cardioid pattern, which is going to be really useful. And it's well built, frankly. It's very well built. It reminds me in a way of Behringer, in that it's a cheap kind of microphone, but it works so well, and so many of the Behringers do as well. But this T.Bone is excellent, and I'd like to thank Soundspeeds for bringing my attention to it in the first place. And it piqued my interest, and I really do think it's worth the money. Now, if you like my videos, please consider subscribing and hit the like button as well. All of those kinds of things will help me as a video producer, and I'll carry on producing films if people are watching. Cheers for now.